Mm.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. This is Krishna Priya. This is the Human Colony Hucolo webinar. It's Saturday, the 20th of July, 2024. And we have today a very special guest, completely different than something that we've talked about before. Her name is Claar, and she does crystal communication via a very special crystal that she was guided to meet, and she's built an entire modality of communication with extraterrestrials, also her guides through her crystal. And her story is quite fascinating. She'll share that with us today and then talk about the work that she's doing. So I will put all of her information as well in the description so you can see how to get in touch with her. She has her own YouTube page and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, but Casey, welcome. So nice to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And I'm really glad I get to meet a few of you while I'm here as well. So I can't see everybody's names, but hello to you all.
We also have a very nice YouTube audience that I'm trying to tune into right now so that I can see them, but they'll be there. And so at a moment where there's time for questions, I'm sure there'll be questions not only from this room, but also our YouTube family. I'm just trying to get to that page because this is always my drama on the to get this page open without like having the sound come on at the same time. And it may or may not happen. I'm not sure. Let me see. Okay. Trying.
All right. Would
So
you like, while
again.
you're doing that,
Yes,
while you're bringing that up, do you want me
I've got it.
to- okay, good. Well, you didn't like,
You wouldn't let me, you were not trusting the process.
no. I was going to say, while you're bringing it up, I could just do
Please.
the gathering announcement.
I was going to ask you to do that, so go ahead. Angie has
Thank
some
you.
announcements.
I do it.
Okay.
Greetings, everybody. And our gathering is a few days away. I say a few, maybe 18. I didn't look at the exact count on the gathering site. It's hucolo-gathering.com if you want to take a look at the place that we are going to be at. The gathering is August 8th through August 12th. It's in Ononda Park here in beautiful Canandaigua, right on the lake. We're just going to be right on the lake. So there will be a lot of fun activities as well as some information on oneness and our starseed families. If you're interested in this, please email classes@hucolo.org. You are still welcome. We've still got some space left. If you're interested, it's $6.95 if it's all inclusive, or if you're like to stay off site, it is $100 a day to participate. We're very excited to have quite a few people coming. We've got Krishna Priya, myself, Jim, Rob Gothier, and Joseph Schmidlin. We have Lisa Gates is also presenting as well. Very excited for this event. A few short weeks away.
It's coming fast.
It is coming very fast.
And I remember when we first started talking about it, and it was like, oh, it's a year away. Oh, it's 8 months away. Oh, it's 6 months.
Just putting the I'm finalizing everything now with all the pieces, the caterers, the wood, like for campfire wood, just there's getting it all ready. Final pieces on.
Okay, perfect. So why don't we start with, I'll just announce who's in the room. We have, let me see, people in the room with us today. We have Angie, Casey, Yana, Don, Mary, Michael, and more people coming in. So we'll just start with some blessings. We'll go Don, Yana, and then Angie's going to interpret, and then we'll come back to Casey.
Thank you, Krishna Priya. Aru kontali nana usma aru ka ikash aruri ka mia kuli mini hani uswane ka kishi e usama akue etaha nasakai.
We are all here bringing you the energies of that which is outside of you. We are bringing all of these energies to you in a different way so that we may interact with you more clearly.
Thank you.
Hi everyone. This is the Arcturians. Toftikartonoe tanea ka art onoia khadania totustikidert hento ukort omai ke atachtuko ortenea hei haka aite tart omai ka astikoto mento to oiter tekayata.
Trust in all things, as all things have information for you. We are asking that you bring us in a way that is much stronger. Trust in God, and that all things are through him.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So welcome, Casey. Let me make you full screen here so we can see your face. Let me see. Okay. So welcome. It's so nice to have you here. And just to the audience, Casey was in a webinar with Max Rempel just 2 weeks ago, and she started talking. I don't know what the subject was, but she started talking about her work. I think it was on a moment where Max had left the room or something, and left us to sort of talk to ourselves. And she started mentioning her work with crystals, and there was something about it that I recognized, not that I do anything the same, but in graphic work, I noticed the way that she was working with the images of crystals, that I had experienced seeing some small beings in nature, in leaves and water and fire and, you know, buildings and just in the air and the sky. And so she perked my interest and we started talking, and what she's doing is so fascinating. I said, please, please be a guest on the webinar. And we had a talk, and I've watched some of her videos, and I really think everyone's going to really enjoy this. So Casey, I just want to kind of leave it to you how you want to run this today, because I know she's one of our most prepared guests. She has a PowerPoint presentation that she's going to share. So it's going to be a master class in the work that she's doing. But so I want to just leave it to you as to how you want this to go today. But maybe you could just start with talking about just because you had a huge kundalini awakening that led you down this path. So maybe you could just sort of talk about your spiritual life up until the time that you started doing your work.
Okay, thank you for one, and hello to everyone. That is included in the presentation I put together for you. So, and this work is highly visual, which is why I put it in. I will say before I begin, however, that this is just another form of channeling. It's done in the exact same way by a shifting in the brainwave frequency patterns that allow extra information to come through. The only difference in what I'm doing is that instead of bringing through the vocals, I'm bringing through the visuals. So I'm letting you see into these additional dimensions by transferring them through the contents of my own awareness, through the mean of a crystal, by that shift in brainwave frequency patterns. And so with that said, can I share my screen?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Try it, and if not, I'll reset it, but see if it works now. Oh, great. Perfect.
Let me just get it on full screen here. So as
And
you
let us turn off our cameras so that we're not blocking, because I think we're blocking the screen. So let me mute. I can turn off my camera, Yana, if you do yours. Christine, please turn off your camera.
Oh, I
I'll
like
do-
to see everybody.
Yeah, but then it goes down the right side of the screen. And so if there's anything to the right, we won't be able to see it. You
Okay.
can stay there in the upper right corner and we can see.
It'll be all me and the beings.
Perfect.
Okay, so as you shared, my name is Casey Claar, and this presentation is going to be on crystal technology. This is an Atlantean era crystal technology newly returning to our planet through me and others like me, as well as consciousness and contact. Okay, so in 2009, I had an awakening. That awakening centered strongly in the kundalini phenomena. Every day, every night for 4 years, I went through this process specifically when I was laying myself down at night, about an hour before I would lay myself down, this energy would come into my system and begin clearing my system. This that happened at the top of each night was the incredibly uncomfortable part of the process. However, by day, the energy changed, and what I felt through my whole body was like a light inner rain, a vibrant, a vibratory frequency that actually through my body made it vibrate. And this part was very pleasant. Along with the kundalini, the first thing that began happening was I began consciously shifting out of body. I was put through training programs that gradually allowed me to make the conscious shift both into and out of Earth space. And so back and forth into the etheric frequency bandwidth of our planet, which is where the extraterrestrial contact happens, and back into 3D space, back and forth, and also much further out. Along with this, a previously dormant spiritual skill working with crystals was awakened right along with me. And again, this is an Atlantean era crystal technology newly returning to our planet. Specifically, it focuses in on working with crystals as communication devices. So I use my crystal in the same way most everyone here on the planet uses their cell phone. I just, with the use of this crystal, don't require any external casing in order to get it to function. It functions purely off consciousness. Okay, and here's a little sneak peek of what we're bringing through. The beings that I bring through are just small bits of information within the frames that I'm enlarging for you so that you can see, because most people aren't able to read the bits. I do this by just honing, literally drilling my attention into what I'm seeing until, not unlike clouds, they what happens in the crystal begins to bust and burst open and form and take shape. And this is a little peek at what comes through. So far to date, we've brought through roughly 500 to 600 extraterrestrial beings, all very different and unique. We're doing this at a pace that does not allow me to spend a lot of time actually connecting with them all, but there's a handful of them that I am most closely associated with, that I link in with more strongly. I do try to connect to the point when they first come through, to at least get a name or a sound frequency vibration to refer to them as, and we'll meet a few of those beings now. Oh, after Isa. So we'll begin with Isa. Isa is the crystal that I work with for this work. In early 2000, in a meditation, the idea came to me to go find my crystal. At this point, I am not a crystal person. I have no crystals in my possession. I'm not really understanding the instruction, but at this time I am living in the Santa Monica area of Los Angeles, where there are just tons and tons of crystal shops on pretty much every corner. And so periodically, while I'm out and about, I stop into crystal shops looking for, quote, my crystal. This takes a number of years, many years. It's something that I'm doing sort of just on a sideline, not really focused into. But one day, I come into a crystal shop on Main Street in Santa Monica called the Aura Shop, sadly no longer there, and see Isa. And when I saw her, I knew that was my crystal. Yeah, so I just went over to her, and as soon as I picked her up, she began communicating through my hand, up my arm and into my heart, very clearly, her name. And she just said, I'm Isa. ISZA. Which I had never heard before. So I immediately researched and found this is often used as the female name for Jesus, Isa de Jesus, in many countries. So there may be a connection of the collective working through me through this crystal with what we call the Christ consciousness. This is not something I've confirmed. It's just an association that can be had. Okay, and here we go. This is how the beings come through. This is Shaw. And in the original orientation of the frames, the beings most often come through at an angle, the same way we would when we're going to have a portrait taken. They have us, face away from the camera. And so this is an enlarged version, and I'm going to show you how the beings begin to come through the crystal so you can have an idea of how they begin to form, how much of them I'm able to capture, and how I work with them to fill out the empty spots to sort of what you're seeing here now. I will mention that I do not work in ideal conditions. I don't have any setup with lights or a table or any device to hold the crystal to rotate it for me or any expensive equipment to take the photos. This is done simply with my consciousness, Isa, my cell phone, whatever cell phone I happen to have at the time. And just whatever conditions I happen to be in. And often this is, the lighting is not ideal. One other thing I will mention before I continue is that when the formations begin forming through the crystal, it's one large massive structure. And the massive structure is comprised of thousands of beings. And the task is to get them to disperse. And I get them to disperse with my concentration, with my focus of attention. I just drill my attention down into what I'm wanting to see more, and everything begins to sort of pull away and focus in on what I'm seeing. And so we'll see what that looks like now. So when Shaw first started coming through, this image over here, number 1, is how it originally looks. Now, when you're looking through the crystal, there's many superimposed layers, and there's some data on one layer, another section of data on another layer, and the idea is to pattern your attention in a way that the layers or multiple frames come together to hone one particular being. It takes a lot of concentration. It's visually challenging on the eyes, but this is a sort of view of how it patterns out. So you can see in frame number 2 here, the eye that just begins to punch itself out. So this is the first thing that I will see. I will begin to see the eye, one eye. And it pushes itself through. And just sort of like those puzzles that artists sometimes make, where you can't see what's in the picture unless you focus at a particular point. This is very much like that. So if you focus at that eye, you'll begin to see multiple faces that it's connected to, because the beings all connect at an eye. They don't come through in 3D where one being is separated by space from another being. They're all connected by their facial features, either at the eyes or nose or chin or cheeks or up here at the top of the head. They're all connected. And so the eye, I will just start zooming in on the eye. And here in frame number 3, we can see me zooming in a little closer. And in frame number 4, boom, there he is. Okay, large as life. Usually with just the one eye, because the other side of the face is another being. And sometimes that eye will come through. But in this example, that part of the crystal is a cloudy part of the crystal that I couldn't get through. And so frames 5 and 6 show me trying to rotate the crystal to get through that cloudy area so I can get the layer of the frame that has the additional eye, but I'm losing him. And so I use frame 4. I have most of his face here. All I need to do is take my one very good eye and put him over here. And so now we have a full being for me to present rather than partial frames. And this is sort of how they come through. Does anybody have any questions on this?
So when you say is it that you're continually taking pictures that you're zooming in, or how is it that you're clearing? So these are just, you're saying the frame, but you're not using any kind of software to do this. This is you and the camera, correct?
This is me, the crystal, and the camera. Yes.
So you see, you're focusing, just inviting that being to come forward. Is that what it is? And then
I am, exactly. I am inviting contact of the being that wants to come through that original eye. There's a lot of beings connected, but there's one that's trying to reach out to me. And I'm reaching out to that being with my attention, and it's reaching out to me with its attention. And as we do this, and as I make my way, oscillate the crystal slightly, rotate it slightly, it's a lot like when you're trying to tune the radio on a radio dial to get just the right station. Identical, but we're doing this in a visual format again.
yeah, it's kind of like in mediumship when a spirit comes through and you start to get them and they start coming forward and you're inviting, and it's like the two of you have a connection. So you're getting closer together. So it's nice. It is nice. It's interesting to see it visual. Like this is what happens, but to have it, yeah, this is fantastic. Okay. Angie has a question, and I think there's some questions in the YouTube chat as well. But what's your question, hon?
My question is, as you are taking, like, do you get like obviously you are setting the attention to have someone come in and come through your crystal. How close are you to the how close are you bringing your camera? And then like, are you just specifically, if you're being led to maybe possibly rotate the the crystal and then take the picture? How are you at how close are you in that sense?
Okay, thank you. First, the beings are reaching out to me. I hear the call. I know to go pick up the crystal.
Yes.
And nowadays I can call them also. But for the first 5 or 6 years, mostly they were calling me. Like a tuned trance telepathy or trance channel, I turn over myself to the contact, and so I am being intuitively informed. I just set myself on a balance point and feel. And as I feel, I sort of know which way to go with the crystal and with the camera. And even if I need to relocate myself from where I am in the room to somewhere else in the room, whatever it happens to be. As far as the location of the camera to the crystal, it's right up on the crystal. So I'm going into the inside of this crystal and also out beyond the body of this into cosmic space. And so we'll talk about that a bit as the presentation progresses. That part's right near the end because it's the part that seems to fascinate people the most.
Okay, thank you so much for that. It just helps me to understand how close to the camera. Again, we're being led which direction, which lighting and things like that. But I just wanted to know how close you got to the camera or to the crystal, your camera to the crystal.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Suzanne has a question. Do you want to ask it, Suzanne, or do you want me to read it?
I'd like to ask it. So I saw your video yesterday, and it seemed like you said that you took the photo that you chose, and then you made a duplicate to create the other half of the being. Is that correct?
That is something extra we do, but this is how the pictures originally come through. Now, something that we're doing nowadays is I want to face the beings forward. One of my main spiritual disciplines is a practice called Tritak, which is conscious gazing. And it occurred to me while I was doing this that if I wanted to share contact opportunities with those who were actually coming across these frames, it would be advantageous to face them forward so people could eye gaze and have a contact experience with them as they were doing this eye gazing practice with the beings. And so, yes, that's coming up. Those frames we call the contact series simply because they are for people out there to practice with for contact experiences. And you very much will have them. These beings are right there. These are like, these are their address. And so at any time that anyone is sitting with them and gazing into their eyes, it's like a phone call they hear. They're there. It's not
Yes.
just a picture you're looking at anymore.
Yes.
These are
Very
more,
good.
these are more dimensional than that. Thank you for that
Oh,
quick.
yeah, I got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Michael has a question. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, so obviously you're meeting multiple of different ETs. Do you know do they tell you where they're from? And how do you know if they're malevolent or benevolent?
Yeah, by the feeling. The vast majority of them are positively oriented. There are a small group of them which are more negatively oriented. So we do have a total picture here. And so I don't close myself down to the totality of myself. I understand I am living lifetimes on both ends of that spectrum. The majority of them are positively oriented, and the one I'm currently in is highly positively oriented, and even more so neutral. Through my spiritual disciplines, I've achieved a neutrality that allows me to do this work, to not have the judgments, to not have the fear, to allow myself to see the total and others to see the totality of what comprises our life experiences that give us the torque we need to make the choice of how we're going to live the current incarnation. And so all of that is here, and that can absolutely 100% be felt.
And one more question for anyone who's trying to have this gift that you have. Like I have a Lemurian quartz in my hand that's about the size that you have. Obviously you look in the moldavite or something, it's not that clear. And as you said, it took you a while to find the right crystal. Any advice if someone was wanting to do the same thing that you were doing?
Yes, one, take your time. Two, walk into the path only if advised from your higher consciousness to do so. There was something else I was just going to say there, and it just popped right out of my head. Yeah, I'm going to have to put a period on that unless you can, oh, well, let me tell you this, because you've mentioned the crystal that you're holding there, that I see now, having done this began for me in mid-2017. I didn't really have the chance to hone it much because I have to work a lot outside of the spiritual work that I do. I'm a professional medical caregiver, and that work has been highly demanding. So it wasn't really until maybe 2020 a benefactor came forward and allowed me to only do this work for almost 2 years. And during that time, that's when I really started diving in and making discovery and writing and sharing what I'm learning with others and making the video series, The Crystal Work Explained, which anybody can find on my YouTube page to find out more than we might be able to get into in this particular talk. But I've discovered what I feel are some of the perfect or most ideal features of a crystal that you're going to use specifically for this purpose. And one of them is this teardrop shape. There's a reason for this, and it's just because this shape nests so well in the hand that when you're rotating her, the weight of her always falls in a way that the crystal's comfortable in your hand. It's not something that you're going to drop because this is excruciatingly tiring work. When I sit down for a session, I might be going into the crystal just like a trance channel for hours. and so it's very demanding on the eyes. It's very demanding on your hand, especially if you happen to be my age. I'm pushing 60 and have arthritis. And so there's always a chance I might drop this crystal. When I start getting tired, my muscles do begin to shake. So anyway, this specific shape crystal is really ideal. The crystal has to have sharp edges. When you go into a crystal shop nowadays, they want to file these down and make the edges rounded. Won't work. The sharp edges are important to catch the geometry you need to open the pictures. And so the crystal has to have sharp edges, not rounded edges. It's important that there be some clarity, areas of clarity through the crystal, if not mostly areas of clarity through the crystal, but also areas of inclusions and inner planes. It's actually on the inner planes within this crystal that holds stored data. Okay, and then also Isa has this large rainbow cluster right at her center. And the rainbow cluster is what adds a lot of the color in the frames. And so all together, I find that these features are what help this crystal function to the depth and degree that I'm getting. And there may be even more features that I'm not yet aware of because I have only worked with Isa. Once I did find her, we tuned together for near a decade before the work began. So there was a long, lengthy tuning process where I did not know why, but I took her everywhere I went. And she's not a small or light crystal, so that in itself is kind of odd. I just always grabbed her to take her with me. And so we spent a lot of time together before this happened. Also, the elemental realm itself is important. What we're seeing is alchemy. We're seeing the elemental realm working in cooperation with me and Isa, the crystal herself, to capture images that are consensually seen. And not just a little consensually seen, very consensually seen. And so this is a form of alchemy. Anytime the elemental realm is involved, we're working with alchemy.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Blessings.
Thank you.
Perfect. Just let me get one more question and then I'll let you go back to your beautiful presentation. Hey, Metwali from our YouTube chat says, do you use your heart as a form of compass if it feels right, or do you feel your heart stronger when it is just right?
Yeah, good question. I am a whole system channel. So I am using all energy centers co-simultaneously. And yes, the heart is open, the heart is active. It very much comes into play, but as do all the chakras.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Let me see if I have any other questions here. No, just some comments, but they're very complimentary. So, and just discussion.
Thank you.
To continue. Okay.
Okay, moving on.
paper. Okay.
So another example of how they come through at that angle. Okay, and I'm just going to show you a few of them. And as we move through the frames, there'll be more information for me to share. This is Jairus.
He looks like the guy from Lord of the Rings, I think.
And this is Quinn. When the work first started, Quinn is the main being who would come through to me. He comes through in a lot of different formats, not just the format that we see here. The main format that I myself am familiar with is the one in which he contacts me in the out-of-body state. And in that expression, he's elven. He looks very similar to what we see here, but not identical. The eyes are similar, the ears are elven, the mouth is small, but he has a full head of hair. The hair is so black, actually, it appears blue. So I here in this frame, I've cropped it to just focus on his face, but this is the full frame. And down here in the lower, I hope it's your left. In fact, oh, I forgot to, I've got this on mirror, so you guys might be seeing really funny images. I'm sorry, I forgot to unmirror. I'm sorry if they're distorted. They sometimes look distorted if I've got mirror my thing on Zoom, but you can see my finger down there in the bottom. And so in the areas of clarity in my crystal, you can often see my hand behind the being who's coming through more forwardly. Any questions about Quinn?
No. But,
Okay.
but that just gives you your little thumb there, or your finger gives you an idea of how teeny tiny he is.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. So one of the people already asked about, I like to word this in a very specific way, because if people hear mirror, they begin to think along an incorrect line. The beings come through just as I have shown you. However, something additional that we have now started doing with the frames is facing the beings front so that you can eye gaze. So you see a sort of small sample of that here, along with a couple that are in their original orientation. So we'll take a peek at the difference and how it feels when you're able to look them eye to eye now. So I have taken a frame of Quinn, who we just saw at an angle, and faced him forward for you. And so now he can look you in eye to eye, and you can look him eye to eye. And if you train your gaze at his and practice at your talk, don't look away, and hold the gaze, hold the contact. You'll begin to probably have experiences with these to the degree that you will allow, or that your central nervous system will allow you to have. But you can see he looks identical to when he's coming through at an angle, or that might not be clear to you yet because you've only seen the 2 frames, whereas I've seen thousands of him. But there's no difference in the way they appear. A slight difference, the level of reality is maybe not quite there as in the original orientations, but also with those, you can't practice the eye gazing. So again, this is just something additional we're doing now for contact purposes, because that is the #1 thing we are working on at present, preparing the human central nervous system for contact. So this is something that we're doing to help this along. This is keys. And here you can just sort of get an idea of the light and light geometry that happens as these beings are coming through. The eyes will in most cases be very realistic, but we'll see examples of when something that's actually a precursor to this also begins happening. Keys is very friendly. He's the being that I like to put out the most when I'm introducing the beings to a large group, because he's just like a deer. His energy is so gentle and so kind, and he is just so intrigued and interested in everyone. And I think people tend to feel that when they gaze upon him. So if you were to begin practicing face-to-face contact with a being Keys, I would highly recommend. The experience will be very pleasant. You're not likely to go into fear and judgment and all that and create a less than positive experience for yourself. Because there are beings who are more challenging. This is Shun, like ocean without the O. Shun is a father figure to Quinn. One of the things I'm able to see when I'm doing this work is the entirety of the structure of the beings that come through and how and where they all connect with one another. And so again, Shun connects with Quinn and as a father figure and is actually associated with the soul who incarnated as my father in this life.
I do have one question, if I may.
Yes.
Have you had the same beings come through several times? Is it usually one time and then moving on to something else, or have you had repeat visits from different beings?
Yes, I can now make calls. So if I want to go in, it doesn't mean that the being will answer, but I can, and they often do. The reason I say that is because I do this for other people. I hesitate to call them readings, but you can write me and ask me to go into the crystal for you, and I will simply generically ask which being would like to come forward for you at this time. Those beings might not answer my call when I go in for them again. Although sometimes when they come through in caricature first, they will return to come through more closely and more true to life. And we'll go over that in a moment. Good question. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I just had the question, and because just a lot of people who are in the room today have watched some of your videos, so good job everybody on doing homework. But you refer to it as making calls and receiving calls. Can you maybe say why you refer it to in that way? And because you did say like their image is their phone number, and I know
Yeah.
you. So when I was channeling, I had an image that I would focus on, and I had made the comment that's like their phone number. So I like the fact that that came through. So maybe you can explain how that works for you as well, if you want to touch on that just briefly.
Yeah, sure. Well, these are transmissions. Just like if you think of it much like you do the vocal channeling, it's identical. So in the same way that we can sit down and go in for the channel, the channel generally is there for us and, begins expressing itself, sending its signals through you to whoever we are sending them out to. And the same thing is happening here. Again, it's just in that visual format. So when a being would like to connect with me, that being calls me through the crystal in the same way that others call you through the cell phone. And in the same way you hear it ring, I hear it ring. It's an actual experience through the center of myself, and I know to go pick up the crystal. And that being, when I go into the crystal, there's going to be a lot of beings, or dozens and dozens of beings, excuse me, every time I go in. But I will be able to identify which of the beings is the one who is reaching out. in the same way that a vocal channel has to go through their higher fractal consciousness, generally the one that's closest to it, out to one that's even beyond that, into a spectrum that's perhaps outside of one's own soul complex. I have to do the same thing when I go into the crystal. So I have to go through Quinn and Shin and a group of others. There are families of beings who transmit to me through this crystal. I know them by eye types. I was taken on board craft once and found myself at a table with a book, and I was going through the various eye types and various different types of crafts and all things like that. So it was all of this was training in the out-of-body state prior to it ever manifesting physically here in the 7th gradient of 3D space. Which is where I find myself to be and why I'm able to let these signals through. That 7th gradient of 3D space is connected to galactic space. It's right there on the frequency bandwidth of what we call the etheric frequency bandwidth of our planet. And it's connected to the cosmos through the galaxy, of course. And so on that juncture, signals can come and go, be sent and received. And so again, altering the brainwave frequencies to a pattern that allows that. And I can tell you geometrically, it appears as two interpenetrating conical shapes, and I just simply sit myself in the diamond shape in the middle, then I can get the signals coming from both ways. Again, just like a channel. It's just that I'm visual and I can see the geometry of these things, whereas other people may not be able to. They just are aware of the vocal aspect that comes through. It was easier for me to begin the visual channeling than it was the vocal channeling for various reasons, I suspect. Some of that was a high awareness in me of additional lifetimes in which I'm destroyed for the capacity. And another is that, I've spent my life practicing spiritual disciplines, and another main one is Muna, practicing silence. And so it is my preference to have that, because it does heighten the telepathy and the inner experience I'm having of myself while I'm here in 3D space. And so these are blocks that I have to get through to get the vocals to come, which we're working on now, because there will be higher information that come through on these beings at a particular point. However, if they let me do it through getting the information through the OBE or otherwise, I won't open the vocal channel, and I think that I am meant to. So this is something that we're working on. I sidetracked there a little bit, but as it comes, I just speak it. So there's that for information in the field.
When you
Well,
say
oh,
you yourself as, are you referring to you and Isa? Is that who you're referring to?
say the whole question again, please.
You refer to yourself or to the work you're doing as we or we're. Who are you referring to, you and Isa?
The whole collective.
Okay.
So the majority of the beings that we'll see, the hundreds and hundreds I've brought through just simply on my own, we're just seeing my inner networking of beings in other locales.
Lisa, do you have a name for the beings? I mean, I know you have them individually, but are they part of a certain collective that you're aware of, or is it many collectives that you wouldn't sort of dare to list because it would take all day? Or
There's multiple of them. Yeah, and that we'll go into that in a bit, I believe.
I'll let you get back to your presentation then. Thank you.
Oh. So here we're seeing Shun, and I'll just go back to him for a minute. This is Shun. Okay, and here is Shun formatting himself into that of what I perceive as a sphinx. And so this is how additional information begins coming through this frame, through the frames. And because the Sphinx is, of course, associated with Egypt, I am understanding that through this frame, through these eyes right here, if I do a Trichak on this, I'm going to be getting a download on ancient Egypt and connection I have with that. If you gaze at this, then you will likely get information related to your connection with ancient Egypt and all of that. One of the things I was led to see was ancient Egypt and its destruction by Trons. And so I think that that's what they were, AI, I just call them Trons. I think that this is what they were wanting me to see, that particular association. So again, these frames are just bits. I'm going and imagine a television screen full of static. And now isolate one bit of that static and blow it up. And that's what you've got here. But I still have these entire frames with the millions and trillions of bits in it. And those I call downloads or stories. And that's the main thing that comes through the frames. This was something that I engaged in because I discovered other people couldn't see. And I was trying to devise ways to help other people see. And so we began doing these portraits. Said is my favorite to eye gaze with, and said is I hear from others challenging for others to gaze upon. But if you will let yourself, it is the most enjoyable experience ever. He and I are incredibly energetically connected, and he's associated with keeping the entirety of my energetic system in check. Not just for this work, but to live in 3D space. And so I literally would not be able to live without said. He puts everything to right. I believe that if you were to do a talk upon him, that something similar would happen with you. The focus would be on your energetic system and putting things in harmonic alignment.
Which eyes are you, because I see two beings there. So I'm just wondering.
Okay, the black.
The eyes there.
Is Sed's eyes, and here's his mouth. Here's his nostrils.
Yeah. So he's
coming through with a symbol at the center of his head.
At the black behind him, I also see two eyes.
Yes, there's always a lineup. So there's always beings behind, out to the sides, connected at eyes, chins. Yes. Yeah, and they'll all begin to come forward, the more you gaze. But what we're looking at is what I call the main. The main is the main being who was reaching out to me during that particular session with the crystal. And so he's the one who's most out in front, the one I myself was seeing. And here that is said, or if you want to say it properly, said. Okay. Pikwa'ani. And this being was able to connect with me through indigenous connections. I have a strong connection with indigenous peoples, and that is how he was able to contact me through that frequency bandwidth. I haven't learned a lot about him. He's a beautiful being. I don't have time to connect with them all. Again, there's just so many. At the point at which I retire, which is not too many years out from now, I hope that I will have more time, to advance the work much more than I have at present. But we have come a long way. Because people are beginning to be able to see. And I'm also working with some others to help them develop their own version of this skill as well. Portabai, this is an example of a rendering that I did for someone else. But interestingly to me, anyway, this being has skin that is opalescent. It shimmers these pastel hues that are so similar, if not identical, to a craft I have experience with, that I can only fathom that these were the beings that were on board that craft. But the being did come through to connect with someone else, not me, who the rendering was for. So I am able to get a level of detail, even when I get the best detail when it's my beings coming through. When other beings are coming through for other people, it really depends on how open that person is to whether I can connect with a being of theirs or not, and how much detail I'm able to garner. The beings come through at, I'm going to say, particular distances. And we're about to see an example of that. Not quite yet, but soon. I'm just going to show you a collection of beings that are very different in appearance so that you can get an idea of the variety of species who are coming through. And this is Midik, and he's a frog like species. Let me just pause and ask here, because Krishna Priya just asked about Set. Is everyone feeling they are able to see the beings I have shown thus far? Uh-oh.
I mean, if anyone can't see them, you can unmute and say, but
Yes, I'm seeing them. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, so moving on. This is Arya. She's an aquatic. And I'm just going to, again, let you see a few of these beings. I'll mention with her, I've placed her in here because she holds a place marker within the structure that comes through that is right down at the underbelly or underside of the structure itself. And she's in the water element. She is a fish, quite literally. Ishvatuti is associated with the Anunnaki. And this is one of the family groups that comes through. They're associated with Ptah and that era. The Anunnaki are associated with that idea and that era. And there are a variety of beings, a few, 4, 5, 6 dozen that have come through so far to date. Not all as clear as what we're seeing here. I don't bring everyone all the way forward. There just isn't the time or the capacity. Again, this is very challenging on the eyes to do this work, but she is one such example. And so I wanted to bring her here before you, and we'll see her again in just a moment. And Krishna Priya asked if the beings come through once or multiple times, and the answer is the ones associated with me very definitely multiple times, because I have to go through them to get to the others. And she's one. Prague is here because, well, a lot of people want to demonize extraterrestrial contact and this work. One of the first questions that's regularly asked is, how do I know these beings aren't negative? Here we have an example of a being who visually appears as what we like to call monsters. These are not monsters. This being, if you let yourself dare to do the eye gazing with, you'll know immediately. The extraordinary thing about this being is its eyes. It does not have standard eyes. It has glowing orbs for eyes. And the eyes, the light behind the eyes are a spectrum of pastel pink, peach, blue, and green. Just extraordinary. And the being speaks through the hues in its eyes, not vocally in the way that we do. And so a lot of the beings that come through have gifts and skills, talents and capacities with a vision like myself. And it's how they do connect. I would say as well, this being is myself in another location. And it's why it can be so easy for me to connect, and why it's so easy for me to feel how soft this being is on the inside, you know, inside this rather gruff exterior shell. So I like to place him here just to go into that information and idea a little. Now, is anybody having a challenge with this being?
No, but Suzanne has a question.
Okay.
Suzanne?
Just a quick comment. It appears that there are some very, very beautiful symbols that you can see around their third eye, almost as if it's like their signature type thing. I don't know. That was my comment.
Yeah, so those are faces, faces coming down the center, again, overlapping. The lower half of the face will be the top half of the next. And this often happens in a totem all the way down through the mouth. If you look here, you'll see the eyes and mouth of a central figure coming through his muzzle area. But here, through the center, you'll see the eyes and very long mouth of another being, and another on top of him. There are symbols behind this, behind everything that we have shaped in a more visual format that we're accustomed to are the geometry, the light geometries behind it. And so if you're seeing the symbol, I would say that you're breaking into the 90 information behind what's more forward.
Oh, Lord.
Beautiful.
Looking at my cat, he's doing something, and I'm like, good Lord, that wasn't to you, it was to my cat. So sorry.
I can't see anybody, so it's okay. Okay. Raisa. She's a little harder to see because the eyes are much smaller. But I've placed her here to begin to go into how the beings come through with permission. This has always been the case. This has been the case since I started going out of body, which was also by permission. My beings, my inner being showed me how that was through the process that we moved through. But this is a more true to life rendition of this being, whereas when she first came through, it was a much greater distance. And at that much greater distance, the beings appear in what I will call a caricature form, not quite cartoon, something more caricature between cartoon and true to life. And so this is that same being as she first came through all those years ago. And the way I could recognize her now is through these long eyelashes. Yeah, and behind her, if you can break into the light codes behind this, you'll see musical notes. So we can see that kind of over here, maybe more so than through the rest of the frame. However, again, if you do a Turtok upon the frame, they'll start like coming forward at you. So there's something about music, musical frequencies, musical notes that's associated with this particular being. It may have been associated with the changing of my voice over the years since I began this channeling. Here's another rendition over here. We see the caricature. And on the other side, we see the same being in its more true to life format. And this is Watumi. Watumi is an ambassador on board large craft nearby. An excellent example of another caricature. So they come through at this greater distance, asking our permission to come forward. They wait until the central nervous system is ready for closer contact. And when it is, they come through very close, and they're more true to life forms, such as here. So this is Esteban. One of the things that I do, in addition to the contact series, when I'm looking at the frames, often ideas will come to me. I will make observation. And one of the observations I made with Esteban was that his features seem to be placed identically as Sed's. And so here I've actually superimposed Sed's face with Esteban, who is of a group called the Ore, who are a group of seers. And I'm about to show you how he came through originally in just a moment, but I'll just mention here that we see Sed's mouth, nostrils, which did not come through when Esteban came through on his own, because highlighted was something very different. So over here we see the original frame. Here we see Esteban. Okay, and so I've centered him, put him upright, cropped it onto his face, and then faced him forward. I've just taken the one side of his face, mirrored it to the other, and got him to face forward. Now, what we see on the frame where he came through is a very clear key, at least to me, and keyhole down here where the open mouth is. And so this is, again, additional information that's coming to me through these frames. It doesn't all come through the eyes while I'm eye gazing. Some of it is just very blatantly right there in the frame. This very neon feature coming down through the center of his face are the Ore. It is an actual species. This is what they look like. And again, they are connected with making manifest beings into seers. That's their focus, their forte. This is Mir. She's a duck-like species. The species I have also intersected with in the out-of-body state. Do I want to go into more about that? I think that we may run into time if I start to go into too much. So I will just say that, and I will show you how she first came through.
50 minutes left. We have another 53 minutes, so you're fine.
Okay, there's a ways to go. So you can see there's a lot of mess in the frame, in her original frame, and this black and blue stripe actually came down through her eye to this point. So I removed it and then cleaned up the frame to, again, what you see. I wish I would stop doing that. On the right, I hope it's on the right for you, it is for me, to present her to the world. So just as we like to look our best when we're putting our face out there to the world, so do the beings. They want you to see them, you know, close to what's actual, rather than with all of the extra data and mess that's often in the frames. And again, this is part of why we are doing what we are doing now. You can see she doesn't look any different on one side than the other. It's just one side is cleaned up and the other a bit more messy.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, so if you look at the physical human face, it is not perfectly symmetrical.
Yes.
And do you find that as you bring them forward, you find the asymmetrics in, or are they always mirrored?
Well, if we go back to what I showed you in the beginning, the beings will always come through at an angle, and the symmetry of the face there is correct.
Okay.
It's never going to be correct or, you know, exactly correct when we mirror the being to face forward. But again, there's a purpose for doing that, and that's so that you can have contact. You can't have contact. Think of yourself in a crowd of people, and you see a person across the way who's not looking at you. It's much easier for you to look at them, isn't it? But now they turn around and they look at you and you're like, oh, it's a little more challenging when they're looking at you to keep looking at them, right? And so we want that. We want that practice. We want people to get accustomed to looking at the beings face to face, not just you looking at them, but them looking back at you. So we can only do that through this process, unless I'm not going to say the beings have never come through facing front, they have, but the level of detail won't be exactly what it is when we do it in this way. There are hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of examples of those frames out there, and this is rather new. So there's only a couple hundred of these where we're really facing them front to give people the opportunity for contact. And again, sit down with one of these beings, take your eyes into theirs for 30 minutes and see what happens.
I do a question. Do you know why they come through at an angle?
Yes and no. So there are just so many of them. And because they all connect angularly through other features, yeah, they're almost always coming through looking at a slightly different direction. I probably could focus on that. The reason I was able to even begin doing the portraits to begin with was because I wanted to help people see. So the stories stopped coming through and the beings, you know, in larger formats started coming through. So I could say, hey, you guys, just come through forward, and I could focus on that. But that would be an additional thing, an additional challenge, an additional level of challenge. Whereas right now I'm already so overworked. I'll be honest with you.
Okay,
I'm
please.
working two full-time jobs. So the spiritual platform, and I do a lot with that. It literally is night and day, and another job. So it's just, there's just not the time, there's not the energy. My physical body can't keep up with it. And there is a lot that we're meant to get out there before my leg of this journey is complete. And we set this down for the vocal channeling to start going into more of the information. So here I'm bringing the formations, but the information is still in play. And so that's more the focus than, you know, trying to get the beings to face forward. I'm just going to go in and do what's easy for me right now and get as many of the beings out there as I can before the vocals come online. So that's sort of our focus.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So this is Theseus. And I don't believe that it's the Theseus that we know of here on our planet, because the spelling did come through slightly different. But a similar association. The being, I think, is associated with that time frame of Greece and the oracles. This is how he first came through. So here's an example of how I could catch enough, but not as much as I had caught in some other frames. So you're getting the raw frame on the one side. And you can just see it's much more powerful to present the being in more of its full right on the other side. Both are actually powerful. It's often more pleasant for me to not face them forward. When I work with the frames, I generally work with the originals. But for consensus, again, we're doing this. You can see more information, more of the symbols come through this way. Without doing it, a lot of the symbols don't get seen. So there's multiple reasons, you know, for doing this technique and getting the full being there and facing front. That is key. And here's Ishvaturi again. So on the one side with the red, you'll see that there's a variety of faces converging. So I could only get them to disperse to the degree that I did here. This being in the red coming through. She wants to come through so much, and there's something that just won't let her. So we have not been able to fully connect yet. But you can see I've got 2/3. I only need 2/3 of the facial features to do a very good lifelike rendering of the being, which we see on the other side. So has everybody got a pretty good idea of of how they come through, what happens, and why we're doing the contact series?
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone else want to chime in?
Okay, so we'll go into storyboards. The main thing that happens are entire downloads, so a full channel. The first story that ever came through was my birth into this earth life. I'm going to show you that frame because it's actually the most readable of them. However, most people are not able to read these. I'm going to show them to you to give you an example of it, and there may be some information in there that you're able to make out, and it will give you a more, this is Kerpow, because what I've shown you so far isn't the extraordinary element of what happens through this crystal technology. What I'm about to show you is, and that something like this can happen through a crystal is just unbelievable because it goes beyond even the geometrics of it into something that I'm not going to claim to understand yet, but I'm absolutely fascinated by. The next stories that came through were my connection with Indigenous peoples, lots of those. And that was the same thing in the OBE. When that started, it was always an Indigenous person who was there in the room with me to take me out. I'm not sure why that connection is there, but I can sort of half guess that it's because I'm in this lifetime, I'm not on my group will say there's the naturals and the chemical synthetics. I'm not a chemical synthetic, I'm a natural. And so are the Indigenous peoples. And I think that that's the connection there. The next story that came through was ancient Egypt and its destruction by Trons, the Titans, my association with giants. I can't read the next one, but I think that that was star seeding. An extraordinary frame came through on the entire concept of star seeding, where a blue being, female, has a string coming from the front of her mouth, and on the front of the string is a human fetus. And there's a bunch of other things in this frame as well, including myself gazing down at the whole thing happening. The whole thing, there's a sort of a blackboard, if you will, or whiteboard. The idea of that was that I took a class on star seeding before coming into the incarnation. The Anunnaki was a very large story that came through over the course of a few weeks. And it wasn't a single frame or a handful of them. It was dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens, and mostly centered on the factions between Enki and Enlil. And then more. These full stories or downloads are the main thing that comes through the crystal. And so we're just going to let our gaze refocus here for a minute. And you're seeing this a little bit distorted because I have my Zoom on mirror my screen. I'm sorry for that. And here is my birth into this earth life. So the very large thing in this frame that is most to the front, if you look right to the center, is an infant child. Right here, I'm sleeping on my stomach. I have a full head of hair. I was born with a full head of hair. And this brown stuff right here is the hair. Can I ask real quick if anyone is able to see this?
Yeah. Yes, I can see that.
Okay, anyone else? Yep, I can see.
Yep, and also.
Yes, I can see it. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I'm with an enlightened group. Up here, we see the eye of a gentleman looking down at me. Can you see this?
Yep.
Yes, I can see the eye right there that's looking down at you. Yep.
Over you.
Okay, good. Very lightly here. This is my Earth Dad. Looks just like him. But he's very light, very light. It took me months to be able to see him there. This is my Earth Mom. She has a triangular shaped face and looks like the Jetsons' mother. The Jetsons. Now, the most extraordinary thing to me here is the conical-headed extraterrestrial male. I'm going to outline the conical head. It starts up here and comes down into the back of his neck, the front of his neck. He has almost no chin. Here's his mouth, and the head comes up this way, and here's his eye. And he is eye gazing into a human-looking female who is opposite him, who's harder to see because she's covered with a lot of things. I can just see the lower part of her face there. Does anyone see that? No.
No, just the lower part of the female face.
Okay. Yeah, he's harder to see. I didn't see him at first either. I had to work with this frame for months before these things started popping out to me. When I first looked at this frame, I saw myself as a world. I actually saw a planet there. I didn't see my baby body. So again, the more you work with the frames, the more that you see, the more that pops out to you. And also the more that presents. What's in the frame when I take the picture is not necessarily what stays. Additional information sometimes does show up in them. Another extraordinary thing. So this is an example of a storyboard. Okay, I'm gonna work my way toward concluding and toward how this happens. So where you can see the beings, I have a website, a Patreon, a forum board, and a YouTube. The YouTube you can find by simply my name, Casey Claar. I've got the links here, and Krishna Priya said she'd link them for you in the video description. You can see a lot on the website, including articles that go into all of this and more. But the Patreon is where I post everything. There's no paywall. We don't do our Patreon that way. Everything is posted publicly. So you can just go there and see everything. The monikers that we go by are consciousnessexploration.com and the Galactic Travel Channel. Very fitting. Okay, I just mentioned Patreon. Everything is posted publicly, right out in the open. And again, what you'll see there in large part is basically the crystal technology. I do post my out-of-body experiences, my dream work, and some other things there as well. But mostly what you'll see is the crystal technology. They are doing their platform a little different now and have given us what they call collections. And so on the page, you can go into collections. And if you're only interested in this work, you can now go directly into the one that says Crystal Contact and just see a stream of maybe 500 of the beings who have come through so far to date. Some of them are posted in their raw format, some the original formats in which they're coming in at angles, and then the contact series. You'll see a selection of it all. Okay, so one of the things that I discovered when working with the crystal is how to go out beyond the body of this crystal. If I go inside the crystal into the inner planes, I can get information that's been stored in this crystal. But I can also go out beyond the body of this crystal into cosmic space, galactic space, and have live contact. So the beings will come through in one of two ways. They'll call me and I'll get the call later. And just like on your phone, if you're not there to answer, they'll leave a message. They leave a message. Okay. And I go in and I can see the being that was trying to reach through to me. However, if they call and I answer the call right when they're calling, this is a live contact. Think of this just like you would a FaceTime call or this Zoom call. The being is right there. It can engage with me live. And there's a technique that I discovered somewhere along the way that allows me to do this. A part of that involves the sun. and the sun's rays, because the beings who come through our sun, just like that's how we got here. They come through our sun, through the sun's rays, they transmit their signals, and those signals are highlighted in the crystal, amplified in the crystal for me to see, and again, interact with. And that process involves something I came to call triangulation, simply because it involves me going into a point on the crystal where three faces are meeting. And if I take the camera lens and my gaze directly into that point, just a window opens out beyond the body of the crystal. And we can go into that, speak of that more, or go in another direction as you all wish. The thing that intrigues me the most is, of course, the brainwaves and how to shift them into patterns that allow additional information to come through to us. And so I will end my presentation here and look forward to hearing from you all now at this point.
Suzanne has a question for you. Go ahead, Suzanne.
Okay. Is there a way that we can get everybody's face back?
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, okay. Oh, good.
So is your crystal phone ringing right now? Would you be able to answer it?
If she were ringing right now, yes. But what you would see wouldn't be very interesting to you. And I generally have to get myself comfortable. I usually prop myself up on pillows on my bed, get myself into a particular position in a way that the light through my window can interact with my crystal. But yes.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Can I just ask real quick, I have an AC unit. Is that interfering with my sound? Okay.
So you wanted to talk, maybe you can talk about the different brainwaves, the theta state, the beta state, all these different states. What is the best state that you found, or is that your interaction is different within each state?
Okay, just like vocal channeling, I can go anywhere from a conscious state into a very deep trance state. So anywhere from high beta, through delta, through a deep delta, like out, I'm not even there anymore. Something else is moving my body. But I like to stay engaged. And of course, my inner being likes me to stay engaged so that I can cognize the data to share with you. If I don't cognize it, if I don't take that extra step, there's not a lot that I'm able to say. But for me, a light theta state is what's ideal.
Mm-hmm.
And I can feel the pattern. So if you can, it's just like when you feel the musculature in your body. So you're sitting there in the positions that you're in. And if you gave more attention to the stress patterns that your muscles were forming to hold yourself upright right there where you are, it feels a particular way. Yes. Same thing with the brainwave states. It's a pattern, and you can feel that stress pattern or frequency wave pattern, and it has an experience that's associated with it. You feel real comfortable. You almost are having a hard time focusing on physical space. It has an experience with it that you begin to recognize, and you know that you're there. I'll have you all do an exercise. If you'll close your eyes and just sort of acclimate to the sensation there behind your closed eyes and the amount of light that's bleeding through into the space. And then deliberately look forward at a distance that might seem to be down a residential block. Down at the end of this, try to see what's down at the end of the block. And feel how the musculature behind your eyes refixes itself for you to do that. Okay. And then now look and try to see something close up that's right in front of your face while feeling how your eyes the muscles of your eyes refocus in order to do that. This is an example of what it's like. You can feel the pattern of looking off at the distance, and you can feel the pattern of looking at something close up. It's light and you have to pay attention, but the more you do it, the more accustomed you are to finding that pattern again and employing that pattern to do what it is that you want to do. For instance, see something that's more at a distance or see something that's more close up. Does that make sense? Yeah, good.
Angie has a question. Go ahead, Angie.
Thank you so much. While I was listening, I closed my eyes. I invited in someone. I grabbed my crystal and I turned it to like where I felt that I was to stop. And I took several pictures and there were 3 faces in it. I blew it up and there were 3 faces in it. I'm like, that's amazing. And I thank them for showing themselves to me. But that was, just wanted to bring that's what happened with my crystal.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I would say we all have this gift. That's just that we didn't we maybe hadn't discovered it yet. It was lying dormant in me after it had already been awakened for almost a decade before I found it.
Yes.
So
Thank
I
you.
think you're welcome. I think that's part of what, we're supposed to do, just bring to people's attention that this is a thing. We're definitely bringing forward something that has not been brought forward to this depth and degree yet before, that I know of. I'm searching for others of us who are working with the technology, but I think all of us can get, the basic templates of the faces of the beings and make contact and then develop that contact to bring them more forward, more full, more beautiful for others to see and work with and engage with. And if we do this, we'll begin to see the wide variety of spectrums actually interacting with ourselves here at present. It's not just those 3 ones that, the mainstream wants us to be aware of, the grays, of course, the reptilians, the Anunnaki. It's much, 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 much more, much more. Yeah.
Did anyone else have any questions?
I just have a comment. I did the same thing this morning to Angie and Casey and Yana, and I thought it was pretty interesting. I definitely have some, the first thing was trying to see all the different ones that were around, and so I did take some pictures as well. I'm gonna look through those. I did get some eyes. And so it was very, very interesting.
And if rather than look at the frames just very broadly, you allow something to catch your attention, a lot of this time it will be one of the beings and one eye that has made itself more obvious to you. And then it's just a matter of focus, beelining your attention into that. And as you do, like the rest begins to disperse and it begins to come into a fuller formation, a closer formation. The being will maybe be in caricature first, and you may ask, come close or give the permission, come closer. I would like to see you more true to life, or not, or you work with what, your conversation is between that. And it begins to happen. That phenomena always fascinated me. It happened in the OBE for me too. In the OBE, I was somehow able to maintain the conscious state through the shift through frequencies. And what that allowed was for me to be in multiple locations simultaneously. And I would notice that at a particular point in the shift, I would hit this area where things appeared caricature, and then as I got in closer, more true to life, and then there, and everything looks just like it does here. And so when that began happening through the crystal as well, I was fascinated. I'm like, wow, that happens through the crystal as well. And that's because the contact stops at that caricature. It's much easier to see a caricature. Oh, that might not even be real. The central nervous system is more okay with that. It's just a caricature, but when it's really blatantly true to life in your face, that's harder on the central nervous system. And your central nervous system is what's in charge through this whole process. It will only let you come as close as what your system can currently handle, because it is a shock. When it started happening with me, my central nervous system went into shock for almost 2 years. The first year, and I mean, I literally shook. I could not stop myself from shaking. I couldn't talk about any of this. If I did, even my voice would shake. Even just about the OBE in itself, which I didn't know what it was when it first started. Even though there were spiritual disciplines, my meditations weren't what happened in 2009. In 2009, that's when I was aware I was being abducted and I was ending up on crafts and there was extraterrestrial beings. And I didn't associate that with my spiritual disciplines. I'm like, what the heck? Even though I was a dreamer and always brought through dreams, and the dreams that I brought through, most of which were repeating for my lifetime up until that point, involved ET beings, it's still a shock. When it reaches the conscious state of mind, that's where the shock is because of the body. That's when your central nervous system comes into play. And when the chakras, all of the stuff begins to be cleared through the chakras, starting with the base chakra and the fight flight system. So, and you've got to get through fight flight, through fear and judgment in order to progress along this path. Yeah, and that's what this is not just about what we're seeing here. This is about a reworking of here for the paradigm shift from the third dimension into the fourth. That's what it fundamentally is. So all of this is reworking the whole system. And this is just a way that we can show others this and share it with others and therefore help them along their processes.
I have a question. You talked earlier about the characteristics of eyes. That you recognize different races by their eyes. Can you give us sort of just a few moments of talking about which eyes do you see per race, or which eyes do you see typically that you start to notice that you can identify?
Very clearly, one of the eyes that a lot of the beings come with are just simply black. One of them is the very large glassy eyes that you saw with Shin and Sha. Another one is the eye of Ra. The eye of Ra is in the center of my crystal. And this is the one Ptah in ancient Egypt and the Anunnaki come through. But there's a variety of others. I have them written down. Those are the 3 that are coming to me right now. I haven't focused on that in quite some time. I'm sorry. But those are 3 of the 6 that I've identified thus far. It's just been a while since I've thought about it.
Because the question I have is, have you started to notice the evidence of these beings outside of the crystal now, like within nature, within trees, within water, the sky? Are you seeing also the same angles and faces throughout?
Yeah, I always have. So I was born with my vision center open, and my natural vision is what I know now is not normal or usual. And I see from the inside out. I see physical space last, not first. And so in my vision, everything is very clearly composed of light and light particles. My attention can, just like through the crystal, identify one of those light particles, and I can take my consciousness inside, i.e. go outside of Earth space. That has always been the case. Yes. And so, yeah, the beings were sort of always there. I didn't give it it's like your breath. It's always there, but how often are you actually cognizing it, other than when you're practicing pranayama? It's just there. So just like that, it was just always there. It was normal. I didn't start looking into it until after 2009, at which point I'm 44, because this is the time frame in which I'm discovering that others don't have this. I didn't even realize it before.
Right. Right. Understood. Yana has a question. Go ahead, Yana.
Oh, Angie first.
Sorry,
Angie first.
but Yana hasn't asked one question yet.
Oh,
I don't mind either way. It's
What
just that.
Go ahead.
Thank you, thank you. It's just that I'm sort of wondering how you perceive it, because in my it helps me in my understanding and how to contact either with channeling or with healing, to think of the whole field of all that is as a holistic thing, and that there are always points of entering from all sides, that you can go to a nodal point of information just by focusing on it. How do you perceive that?
How do I perceive going in at different angles, or how do I
No,
perceive
so
bringing a totality into a specific
yeah,
expression?
so it helps me in my way of thinking of that everything is possible, because everything is holistic and you have access to all the information at all time. So
Yes.
you just your steering wheel is your conscious and your focus. And with your intention, you just draw in information and go to, like in a library, go to a certain thing and pull it out. And that's what I want to know. And I feel that the contact, like if I go to different star families, also is the way of connection. Like you're using the crystal as a center point, but I do it more from within. It helps me to think of everything as holistic and as information accessible from multi sides. So whether you go in through a crystal or me tuning in from my starseed itself, versions of connecting. So,
Well, something that came up in my mind as you were speaking there, Jana, is that one feature of me is I've tended to be a bit of a dunce through 3D physical life. I would like to say that all of this has been deliberate on my part, but it hasn't. I've sort of stumbled over it. You know,
yeah.
that happens to be how that's regular for me. That's a steady course for me that
Yeah.
come at me and I sort of fall over them, rather than it having been a refined, intentional thing from the get-go. The crystal, it's all one, it's all at once. It's consciousness. Again, altering the brainwave frequencies is moving oneself into a meditative state. So you and in theta, you are working with the mind directly. And because theta and delta are so intricately linked, you're working with what's highly invisible behind that. When working with the mind, I see the mind field geometrically. And so this is how I would shift out of body as well. It was void, point of light, mind field, geometrical structures, aerial view of a world, ground level view of world. It's sort of the layers that you pass through, or I would pass through as I would transition from one point to another point. So it's all happening regardless of whether I'm using the crystal, which I believe is, invoked to help me show you, not for me. I'm already able to like shift my whole self there, and so this was something to help show others. Just like I'm going to keep coming back to vocal channeling, right? So most vocal channels can shift in and get the information, themselves already, that bringing it through the vocal cords and the voice is for others. It's for ourselves too, because, things happen here as we're, radio broadcasting it. And same thing with the crystal, but it's all of that. So again, you're working with the mind in meditative states, with the geometrical data, which is much more data rich, of course, stepping down into 4, 5, 6D into galactic space where the formations are more recognizable to us, is just an extra step that you can go. I went there because there was a point at which I was shifting out, in which I don't believe I was coming back. And I reached a certain point, and I was in this communication with someone. I don't know who it was at that time, but they had me stop and look at my heart, and I could feel, oh, I was going to miss it. I was going to miss it. I did Lot's wife's thing. I turned back and looked. And when I looked, I could literally see all the fun that everybody was having with first contact and that whole thing, and I was just like, oh, all right, I'll go back and help.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice.
Because I wanted to, not because I had to, because it really did look like a lot of fun. Everybody was talking with everybody and, meeting each other and reconnecting, and their reconnecting here on the planet was reconnecting them inwardly, with the rest of themselves. I could see the whole process happening. And so, yeah, this is just the cosmos is easy. The universe is easy. This is outside of manifest territory. What's hard is the first harmonic, first, second, and third dimension, and the second harmonic, third, fourth, and fifth dimension, because this is manifest space. This is where we wear bodies that can get hurt and be destroyed and things like that. So that leap from being confined to our own planetary sphere to not being confined to our own planetary sphere and absolutely being aware of extraterrestrial life. That's the hard juncture. It was hard for me, very hard for me. Again, I was in shock. I don't like it when like I'm not a turntail. I could see that was hard, that there was work that needed to be done there, that there was a lot of clearing that I could still have happen here while I was in this incarnation. And so I beelined at it, and that's what I'm still beelining at, because that's where the work is. That's where the work is.
Thank you for that. For that explanation from your side. There are others who have questions, so I will. Thank you.
Question in the YouTube chat. So go ahead, Angie.
Oh, thank you. Mine is just a quick question. I did have to step out, so I'm not sure if you answered this already. Like, I can just sit there with my naked eye and look at that crystal, and then 1 minute there'll be nothing, and then the next minute there'll be a face there. Do you see it without the camera as well?
Yes. Constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the system wants to call it pareidolia, but it's just an ability to see beyond the 3D spectrum.
Right. Yes.
And yes, that ability has always been in check with me. My awareness center was the first realization that I had when I started shifting out of body, was that my awareness center was always open, that the veil is not. There's nothing there, so yeah, the vision center was always open.
So yeah, and then while I was just sitting here, I'm like, oh, I see you here. Can you tell me who you? So it was just like I said, I just had my crystal. I have some on my computer in front of me, and so I just happened to, it drew my attention. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's somebody right there. So I'm just wondering if you also see it without a camera.
Oh yes. Oh yes. The way that this probably first started happening with me cognizing the fact that the vision center was open, that I was seeing things in my visual field that others didn't see. I would be sitting in meditation. I studied with during this whole time was a time when I had left my home state, Nevada, for California. My spiritual teacher had passed. She was my own great aunt, and I had gone out to look for a new teacher. And I found Eric Schiffman, amazing soul. If you don't know him, please look into him. But I started studying with him in Santa Monica, and would get invited to his home practices. He has a yoga studio in the back of his house, and we would be in meditation. And at that point, my meditations were almost always eyes open. I was an eyes open meditator. And I began my talk started deepening at that point because my practice disciplines had intensified. I was practicing many more hours of the day than I was prior to that. And I had begun teaching. So I was always in meditative states, through a good part of my day every day. And so my talk, this conscious gazing discipline, I had began to deepen. And I wasn't looking at anything when my eyes were open. I was just generally generally the environment was there, but I wasn't looking at anything. And I noticed that people's forms started vanishing from the space. The space would still be there, but one of the person's bodies in there would just have gone transparent. I'm like, wow. And then when I would look at that, I could see a white shadow around the outside of where they used to be. And then if I went into the white shadow, another layer of experience would happen. And I would go as deep as I could until I felt a shock in my body, and everything would come back. And so that's sort of how it started. But one of the things that I would see when their forms were there were these snowflake-like formations of brightly colored light, and they'd just sort of be floating through people's forms. A variety of visual phenomena would happen. I could always see the light particles that compose their form. I can see the ones that compose space. So the vision goes quite deep. But it just sort of advanced, I guess, to what we're seeing here now and what I'm able to do with that ability, or what's able to happen through me with that capacity in check. I don't, I'm not doing it. Again, I'm a dunce. My skill, if I have one, is observation. I was able to observe that these things were happening. Whereas for the longest time, I wasn't taking that they were happening. I just wasn't observing it. But again, like the breath, always happening, but not necessarily always observing it.
Beautiful. I have one question from the YouTube chat, just because we're coming to the end. It says, do you know where you came from before your current life here? Was the question from Cami in the YouTube.
Yeah, because I perceive the lifetimes as happening simultaneous. That's challenging for me to say, but there are star systems that connect with me more strongly than others. Sirius, Lyra, the feline beings and lion beings in particular, very associated with my current lifetime, and the visual stuff that's happening, and certainly the stuff that's happening with the crystals, but others as well. Aldebaran, Antares. Yeah, there's multiple.
Right.
Sirius is my favorite. There's the connection that I have direct. The one that I have with Sirius, I believe it's a lion being. His name is Alarak, who's recently come very. He's coming closer into my 3D space now, but that is very associated with the work that we're doing through the crystal and with the portal that we're going into now called the Lion's Gate, which is that's the portal that instigated the crystal technology work.
Interesting. Okay, and then I think that's all the questions we have. Is there anything that you would like to maybe talk about, what you're doing, again, how people can reach you, maybe something for people to work on for themselves, just a sort of summary of your talk here?
Okay, well, I would say that speaking with me personally is the best way to move forward if you're looking into going into what it is I myself have learned through this process. And the best place to reach me is on my forum board, which Krishna Priya is going to link for you in the description.
Already in the description of this YouTube chat. And if you're in the Hucolo group, it's already in the description of this webinar.
Yeah. Everything I do is along the spiritual bent thus far is unconditional. The mentoring that I do, anything that we might do together, I teach in the OBE and telepathy and crystal technology and various subjects. There's no paywall on anything, so please don't hesitate to reach out. Just dive in and what you would like information on or assistance with. I'm here to assist.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It has been such a remarkable pleasure in dealing with you and talking to you and learning about you and all the work that you're doing. And I'm sure everyone was just beautifully amazed at what you've been able to capture. I do have one question. When you pulling out images, are you continually taking pictures, or are you, so you're just, you're talking to them, you're requesting they come forward, and it's just as they come forward, you're taking more and more pictures. Is that right?
I am. Every time I go into the crystal, and it depends on how long I'm going to work with, but say I'm hearing a call, I'm probably going to be with the crystal for the next 90 minutes, which is why I get myself comfortable. What, I might have 400 shots that I have snapped off, depending on, if I can't get them, or if it's somebody that I've already gotten in part, but only in caricature, and I really want, like, if I'm spending a lot of time to bring them through more closely, yeah, I'm going to be, especially when I get the one eye that's really popped out, because a lot of times you can't see the totality while you're in the crystal of what's actually going to show up on the camera.
Right.
You have to get used to that, because what you're seeing when you're going into the crystal is them large as life. You think that it's going to go onto the frame in the same way that you're seeing, but not necessarily so.
I mean, you were saying something about, this is something that's been dormant, but, cameras haven't been around for more than 100 years. I mean, more than, so maybe it was dormant, but we didn't have the ability to pull it forward because, you know what I mean? Other than but if you think about people who looked in crystal balls and saw imagery, the witches and these beings, they were also staring into a crystal ball, seeing images and pulling them out. But the witch or the person, the seer, the reader was necessary because the average person wouldn't be able to see what they're seeing. So.
Right. Those are just seeing it for themselves, in the same way a vocal channel who doesn't speak is just hearing it for themselves, right? But now we have an additional capacity, the capacity to share it, to show it to others. And yeah, that's what this part's all about.
Yeah. Okay, so any final words for us? Or would you give us a blessing? Usually we'll have a blessing at the end of the thing. So maybe if you do a blessing from your own, for us, for the watchers, for the world, whatever you feel inspired
I want somebody else who's more beautiful with the blessing to do it than me.
Okay, no problem.
I mean, I do bless and wish you all the best. And there is a remarkable thing happening on our planet right now. And the more attention that we're able to bring to what this is that is happening, the more people that will step into it, who will grow in advance from the experience they're having now into that which they are more truly wanting at this time. And so
that's a beautiful blessing.
This is the work in the service.
Thank you so much. Thank you again, really remarkable. And all of Casey's information is in the description of this YouTube video. And for the people who got the email from me, it's there. And for the people who are on the Facebook group, it's there. So it's spread out over there. And we'd love to have you back at another time and continue this conversation. So thank you so much, Casey, for your.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, this was super fun. Absolutely. Anybody who wants to reach out, we're very gregarious.
So Oh, that's your hands. You're doing something with your hands. Oh, you're talking. I'm seeing there's a delay in the YouTube, so I'm seeing your hands just because I have the picture off to the side. I'm like, what are you doing with your hands? But it's you talking. So never mind. Angie has some announcements before we go. Next week we'll be back with Jim, and so I want to invite everyone to show up next week, which would be fantastic. And yeah, Angie, why don't you do our outro with our announcements?
Thank you so much. Thank you again, Casey. This was an amazing information that was given, and it just gives us another perspective of how we can look beyond the five senses. So thank you for that.
And just let me add, it dawned on me, and you'd said it, but I didn't really it didn't hit me till like literally just now. This is the first contact. This is the visual first contact.
Yes.
Other than just the channeling contact, the dreams, but this is actual photographic
Yes.
manifestations of being. So thank you.
This is the first leg of the journey, and what we personally are doing will advance to where the crystal's not needed, and it will actually happen through my own form. So there is a gradation of advancement through this, and we're working on it.
Okay, so thank you so much. All right, Angie, announcements, please.
Thank you. We have our gathering scheduled, and it's just a few short weeks away. The gathering is scheduled for August 8th, 2024, which is the Lionsgate Day. And the energies on that day are going to be amazing. Portals opening. We're going to be gathering energies. It's just going to be a beautiful, beautiful time. It is in Canandaigua, New York, on Canandaigua Lake, right on the lake. We have lake access, and just going to be an amazing time. For coming all-inclusive, it's $695. If you would like to stay off-site and just come in daily, we're offering day rates for those that live in the area or are staying off-site. Classes at hucolo.org. If you're interested in, I will get information on how you can be a participant. I'm so excited for this.
Yes, we are very excited. Yay. All right, everyone, have a fantastic weekend, the rest of your week, and we will see you next time. Much love to you. Thank you to everyone in the YouTube chat, to Metwali, Abriel, let me see, Just Thinking, all the names. Tammy and Elga, thank you for everyone that was watching through the YouTube chat. Thank you to everyone in our room. And yeah, much love to you. And we'll see you soon. Bye. Okay, we're off.
Not yet.
No, we're not.